both up at the same time. All right, let me know when you're ready.
Wait, Goose, are you going to present in here too on the slide deck so we can all have everything synced up? Voices
Yeah, that would be good if you could do that.
Okay, guys. Yeah, we're officially live now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live team meeting, this time on the 4th of May, 2019. Today we have Miles, myself, we have Parker Honeyman, Daniel Keller, we have a member of the development team, Davey. You might know him better as Jeffke. And we also have Mario Price, or you might know him as Coach from the marketing team, and James Smith, you may know him as Goose. April 30th, May 1st. We'll talk about some of the Zelle marketing stuff that's been going on, the new website and branding, and how it's changing over the course of the next few days and weeks, quietly and slowly. Zelle Nodes news and the updated schedule, Binance Dex, Nevermore, and more, which Daniel Keller will be taking on for us. So we'll get into it with Zelcore Plus, already on 2.0.1, with 2.0.2 fixing a few little things that have been reported and suggested, coming out on Monday/Tuesday. So Zelcore Plus released with some major exchange API integrations, including Binance.
Miles, this is Dan. We don't see the PowerPoint presentation is not up.
I think it is.
I just want to check because I just want to make sure that we know what's going on.
Yep, everything's all right. Yeah, we can see that. James, you can go to the next slide.
Okay, we're good.
Great. So Zelcore Plus released with some major exchange API integrations, including Binance, Kraken, and Bittrex at launch. We're looking to add a few more exchanges over the coming weeks and months. Suggestions are welcome. These are fully featured, as anyone that has used Zelcore Plus has seen, and you can do the whole process. Let's say for Kraken, you could even withdraw fiat all within Zelcore. The new coin overview provides extra information, charts, and curated team news. The portfolio tracker is now available, which allows you better insight into your holdings, and we're going to be improving that over the coming weeks, as well as building an aggregator application. You get additional wallet addresses, 3 of them for each asset, as well as the ability to import your private keys. And you have a larger memo notes field. It's increased from, I believe, a limit of around 16 to 20 to 80 characters. And here are some screenshots of coin overview. You can see the actual news aggregation and charting information, as well as market information changes, etc. Also, we're looking at adding extra information about the assets, descriptions, etc., as well as links that are useful. On the next slide, you can see the exchanges that are available: Binance.com, Kraken, Bittrex, and Binance Dex. Binance Dex is available in standard Zelcore. The aforementioned 3 are available in Zelcore Plus. And on the next side, you can see the UI for Kraken on the BTC USD pairing. And yes, it's a fully featured integration with pretty much everything you do on Kraken available in Zelcore. Zelcore Plus is offered in 3 plans: 1 month at $9.99, 3 months at $28.49 with just a shy of a week free, and then the 12-month plan with 60 days free, as well as discounts for Zelle. Currently, you can pay in either Zelle, BTC, LC, ZEC, Raven, and Komodo. We're looking for more suggestions. Any communities out there that are interested in having their asset accepted, please do reach out. Features to come, I mentioned a few before, but a currency calculator, sort of to help maybe potentially with conversion rates, right? Fiat regardless of which fiat, 180 plus to whichever crypto. Better portfolio tracking, so displaying total asset value, curated crypto funds. We're partnering with the company to provide those. And then extra technical investment tools and customized notifications. I think there's some talk of sounds as well. Just a few extra general features. The news aggregation app as well, more of a hub than just team news. So yeah, more to come. I'm going to now hand over to Parker to talk to us on Zell nodes.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'll talk about the Zell nodes, both what has been done since the last live meeting and also what our future plans are for continually updating the Zell nodes code and functionality. So on the next slide, you'll see a snapshot of our dashboard for Zell nodes, which shows our total Zell node count. We're getting pretty close to 750 nodes. And also 41% or more Zell is locked up and collateralized in these nodes. So that's pretty good. I mean, we've been pretty steadily growing. At launch, I think after 24 hours, we had around 250 or 300 nodes, and it's been steadily growing towards 750 right now. So that's great. And then on the next slide, Goose, we'll talk about some of the upcoming updates. But first, I wanted to talk about, since our last meeting, we've had a new version of the binaries come out, which was, we'll be continually cleaning those up. There's still a little bit of issue with the network propagation and syncing. And so that'll just come with time as we continually update the daemon, which is the first line item here. And then one of the major updates that we'll work on in the coming weeks and months, that's part of the roadmap, is we'll have updated benchmarking, a little bit more sophisticated. It'll still follow the same rules, same specifications. So for node operators that are spec'd and following the rules to what's been put out there that are requirements for node operation, you should be fine and won't notice any difference. And then we're also researching a few things going forward. One would be some type of deterministic rewards model. Right now we're on round robin, which works very well most of the time, but there's always some issues in all payout schemes. So we'll look at that. Also, one of the big things is how are we going to use the Zell nodes? So we're looking at one or multiple side chains to add as type of test net to test the functionality of both the idea of side chains and just the functionality of the decentralized computational network. And another big component is working on the backend functions that are necessary to do things like decentralized applications, which would lead to ZellX, which ultimately leads to ZellDev. Things like the decentralized order books, decentralized databases. All of that is planned to start work in this quarter and going forward towards the end of the year. And then a note for those who operate Zell nodes, in case you have not updated yet, we do have a new version that came out a few weeks ago. If you look at the dashboard, which is at dashboard.zell.network, you can look at your nodes and see which version you're on. The current version is 17.0011. So if you haven't updated, please update your nodes.
To tag on to the end of that, we're going to have a mandatory version of the daemon coming out soon. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But first, we have the marketing team. I think James, Goose, and Coach are going to be getting us an update here.
Absolutely. I will start really quick and hit Twitter and pass it over to Goose here shortly. But if you take a look, that top number, that's a snapshot of last month from the Zell account, and that is at Zell Cash. And we typically use that account as you look at the number tweet, 27 tweets, to just have very, very generic updated information from our Zell ecosystem. We tweet that on our at Zell Cash account. But even with that, quite a few impressions at about 150,000, 5,000 profile visits right around there. up 444%, 811 mentions. That's meaning people in the community are tagging us in their posts, and then also are hit over 2,000 followers over the last month with picking up 565. Extremely excited as you look down at our Zelcore account, which is the one we're a little bit more active on, showcasing our great platform that we have in our Zelcore and Zelcore Plus and our Zell nodes. And, we obviously tend to tweet a lot more from that account with 243 tweets over the last month, which is astronomical, to be honest with you, especially in the crypto space, to have an account just have that much activity. And it's hats off to multiple people in regards to that. I mean, the core core dev team obviously producing a tremendous product and allowing for us to showcase it via that Zelcore account. And then the marketing team, we have over about 250 pictures just showcasing Zelcore and Zelcore Plus, kind of in a room here in the Discord that we rummage through and post on social media all the time. And it takes a lot of legwork and leadership from Miles and Daniel and Goose, just getting a great look and feel for how we want to display our platform. So once again, hats off to everybody, because it is a effort that is on multiple people's accounts. So definitely appreciate that. And profile visits as well is up a tremendous amount. And as of the end of April, we were at 1,999. And here, I believe yesterday, we eclipsed 2,000 Twitter followers. Once again, is a huge feat as we tend to focus on organic growth. So once again, thanks to everybody in the community. Continue to engage with us. And here's more from Goose.
Well, yeah, and I'll echo that. Thanks also to you, Coach, for really being the one kind of putting the ideas out there and getting everybody together to make sure that the word is out, because we're a lot of times the first to know from the developers what's coming down the pike, and then we have to be, of course, the ones to share that information with the rest of the community. So kudos to you and to David and everybody else who's contributed, especially for the images that we're posting on Twitter. That's fantastic. One thing I'd like to kind of touch upon is the Zell YouTube channel, and if you recall, since our last live stream, we were in the process of updating it to give it a little bit more uniform look. That has continued to grow, like you said earlier, organically. We have, brought a whole new look and feel to our thumbnails to give the channel its own feel, and this has been very well received, and I've received multiple compliments on how unified it looks. So once again, hats off to everybody who's contributed in terms of these thumbnails. The next thing is what we've had really since our last, I'd say in the last month or so. You can see the dates here, April 3rd through May 1st, and 25 videos were posted, and we've got over 8 days of total watch time. Now keep in mind, this is a very new channel. We just migrated over to this new channel, and it's slow going right now, but I still think it's pretty significant that almost a third of the time that we are evaluating here has been spent watching the videos, and a lot of it's tutorial stuff for the Zell nodes, but also previews and whatnot for the different features that are being added to Zell Core. The top videos that people have been watching are, of course, the Binance Dex preview. That was huge. And the Core podcast, episode 2, featuring Miles and Daniel. So, of course, everybody likes to hear what's going on from the developers. And thank you guys for joining us on that podcast. I think that was very well received from the community. Another thing here is our sources. And this is important because it kind of gives us a handle of where people are hearing about us, and we've got right off the bat over 27% of our impressions from YouTube come from YouTube's recommending our content, and that has to do with the fact that we have been posting so regularly. If we hadn't posted almost a video a day kind of a scenario, then we wouldn't necessarily have that level of recommendation coming from the YouTube algorithm. So this is one of the things that you have to be aware of when it comes to working with YouTube, is you're constantly kind of battling that algorithm, or one way or another, you're kind of beholden to your frequency of posting, so that YouTube sees, oh, this is a channel that's really producing content, so it starts to put you on more recommendations. Beyond that, though, the top sources are still Twitter, of course, over 29%. Twitter. So whenever we post a video on YouTube, we often post a link to it on Twitter. So people naturally migrate from Twitter over to YouTube, which is great. But the other important one is Google searches. And I know this had come up in our previous meeting as well, that if you just type in Zell Core or Zell Cache or Zell Technologies in Google, you are way more likely now to start seeing sites for us than any other Zell type, so or at least 10% more likely, let's put it that way, because clearly people are looking for us. The other part there, a little less than 10%, YouTube searches, Discord and Medium, because we have quite an active following on both of those forums. We are really thankful to Parker for producing all of the content on Medium, because that is so informative, so helpful, that people can not only get the news side of things, like here's an article that explains exactly what's going on with a particular feature, but also some educational background. I know recently he had done a post on how Zell works and things like that. So there's a lot of great information available on Medium, and naturally there will be videos that sort of help to describe that as well. Sometimes he'll provide video content which is used as an embedded source on that Medium post, so you can kind of watch along, see what he's doing to explain one of the features. So again, very thankful for that kind of engagement. And last but not least here, in terms of like media, coming from Coach and myself, I think I'll hand it back over to Coach here, because he's done such a great job with sort of spearheading this podcast.
Yeah, the core podcast was basically started about a month ago, just as another medium for our community to keep up with Zell. Obviously, we give you easy to digest tweets, obviously 160 characters or whatever that character amount is these days, or less. We give you Medium posts from Parker. If you want to read a little bit more, we have YouTube videos from Goose. So we're hitting you from a bunch of different avenues, and we just thought we wanted to give something from an audio standpoint that if you wanted to listen while you're riding around in your car or whatever you're doing, you could listen and keep up with what's going on with the Zell community. So if you hadn't listened to a podcast yet, basically Goose and I sit back and we talk about all things Zell, and we feature members from the team and others that have an impact on the Zell community as well. So we're currently about 8 episodes in at the time. Me and Goose kind of peaked at some numbers. It's always hard to get some concrete numbers in the podcast world, but through about 8 episodes, we're a little over 1,000 listens. So it's starting to pick up, and we're really excited about that. We'll be releasing another episode on Monday, episode 9, talking about the new website as well. So once again, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Anchor, and as well as on YouTube, and we will certainly link each updated podcast on Twitter.
Excellent. So, yeah, and speaking of website, we also have a little slide here that I believe Miles could probably give us a little bit more insight on, because he's predominantly been the one working on this with Lumi, right?
Yeah, so it was kind of big props to Lumi, who kind of started the push to the new unified website. And then before I came out here to Japan, I spent a weekend with him in Gothenburg, his native city, and we worked over the design of not only the website, but also Zellcore Plus and a couple other things that are coming soon. It was really great to just get us together in person to knock through some stuff. Similar stuff happened, I remember, back in, what was it, August, September, Daniel, when Lumi Tadeusz and I were together with you in Philadelphia working on mobile. And I think mobile got knocked out in the space of like 2 weeks after we were together. So yeah, it was just a good move, I think, for us to move to this unified website where everything's in one place. Before it was a little bit sort of disjointed, where we've had different styles of sites and information's all over the place. So we're working to just unify everything at Zell.network now, except the redirects and everything. So yeah, that's really all there is to it. I think we've had a lot of compliments on the design and the simplicity of it. But suggestions are welcome. If you find any typos or any information lacking or missing or suggestions, please do let us know in Discord.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add there, Miles, is that we we have been very transparent with the fact that people ask the question, are you going to get rid of the cache and Zelle cache? And the answer is yes, we are going to move toward a more unified approach and have Zelle be our primary piece. So you're going to start to slowly, so instead of doing this massive rebranding, we're just going to do it gradually, and through attrition, we'll just eventually remove the cache out of that. So if anybody had to question that. Now that we talked about it, but
Before.
yeah, before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Zelcore and the Binance DEX. Release 1.6.0 was Dexter, so it was the very first. We are the very first multi-asset platform to have the Binance DEX, the Binance chain, and the Binance DEX integrated natively. So we'll go to the next slide. So Binance DEX is available to all the users of Zelcore. So I've had a lot of people ask questions about whether or not it'll continue to be on the other side of the paywall, and it absolutely will be. It's available to everyone. So I highly suggest that people can, take a look at it, play around with the Binance DEX. I believe there's 2 assets, 3 assets, and they're going to continue to keep adding additional assets as they go. I think there's 4 that have been announced, and I think they'll eventually continue to kind of keep ramping that in. Any asset added, so they'll become part of the Zelcore ecosystem as well. And as Binance continues to keep developing that and adding assets to the DEX, we will obviously add those assets in as well. Next slide. And that's just a little snapshot of the UI that you're seeing when you're in the DEX. You'll notice that this looks a lot like the Plus, because what we've done is we've kept it uniform across the board. We've had a lot of questions about people asking about giving Zelcore Plus for free. And essentially what we did was give the DEX for free. And you can see kind of the features in the feature set that would be in Plus for Bittrex, Binance, Centralized Exchange, Kraken. And I think eventually we will add Gemini as well. So we're going to continue to keep developing those centralized exchanges out. We've identified other ones that we want to add to Plus as well. But the reason why we don't give Plus for free or in a trial is that is a revenue generation model for the project itself. So we've given Binance DEX for free. Check it out, play around with it, and if you want to move up to Plus, then absolutely do it. Next slide. So one of the big things we want to talk today about is Project Nevermore. Now this actually wasn't talked about much before today, because we were in development phase. We tend to try to keep things close to the vest as we want to develop these projects and get them to the point where they're actually functional, and then we want to release that to the community. Next slide. So Project Nevermore we will be the very first multi-asset platform to integrate with the Raven Chain asset layer. So a little bit about the Raven Chain asset layer. They were meant to provide tokenization of securities and other assets on the blockchain. If you haven't taken a look at what their asset layer looks like, you can, if you just Google it, Raven Chain asset layer, you can read. I believe one of their lead developers wrote up a nice article about what they're really trying to do with that asset layer. We're going to provide full access to all Raven assets within Zelcore. So anything that is maintained in that Raven Chain asset layer, anything that's tokenized on that Raven Chain asset layer, will be available in Zelcore. We are looking forward to launching this within the next 2 weeks. And we want to continue a nice partnership with Raven. As you know, we've aligned ourselves with projects like Binance and Raven and other projects that bring value to the space. And many would say the holy grail of blockchain is the interoperability of blockchains between each other. So our goal is to find some of the premium partners to work with and bring the power that they're offering into our platform as well.
One thing I'll add is this brings like 19,200 assets. Now, a lot of them are obviously just for fun, but the potential for what Raven are building here is pretty huge, with some of the potential tokenized securities and other assets that will become available on the asset layer. And the reason you didn't really hear about Project Nevermore was because it kind of just came out of nowhere, right, Dan? I think it was talked about a couple weeks ago with Raven, and then today pretty much got it built and sorted in the space of a few days, and now we're just in the testing phase and cleaning up the UI before release. So huge props to Daesh the Trunk, as you may know him, for getting it done so quickly.
Yeah, and it's really been the quest of the Zell team to really align themselves with projects that have momentum and are actually developing technology. So we tend not to go out and pump these things up. Actually, the first tweet that ever went out yesterday was about Nevermore, was just one word, Nevermore, and had a raven. We do that on purpose because we want the community to be the first ones that get engaged with this, and we don't want unnecessary pumping of price or anything like that. So we want to continue to keep developing these projects, and we'll bring them to you as we get them. Next slide, please. And that's just a sample of what the Project Nevermore will look like. So that asset is ravenfree.com. It'll bring everything. Miles threw the number out there, 19,000 plus assets on the Raven network that'll be available in Zelcore.
Yeah, it's just a nice beta UI that was thrown together a couple minutes, was it an hour ago? But yeah, rapidly developing a long partnership with Raven over the next coming weeks, months, and years. So next, I'm going to talk about the upcoming roadmap, and I'll be handing off back and forward to the various guys on the call. So Goose, if you don't mind just switching over to the next slide, and I'll talk about some of the Zelcore Plus enhancements. We kind of mentioned that just before, whether that's various exchanges, news aggregation app, features and suggestions that were actually being given from the community. We're rapidly implementing them. So anyone that's in Discord knows you can make a suggestion and you might see it screenshotted and sent back to you in the space of a few minutes. So please do give us suggestions. Project Nevermore, Dan just covered that. I don't think we need to go over it again, but it's 19,200 assets that are on Raven, with the first multi-asset platform to provide access to the Raven asset layer. And it's going to be available obviously on desktop and mobile. Zelhash v1, that wasn't talked about so much in this meeting. It will be talked about more to set, and there is some changes in the way that hashes are processed, and it's designed in a way to be more FPGA and ASIC. And when we say ASIC, we mean the Bitmain kind of stuff, not obviously GPU. So more ASIC and FPGA resistant, which would be much more difficult to produce a single chip ASIC, if even possible. And an FPGA's efficiency should be all but crippled if someone could develop an FPGA solver for it. And then other things, more energy efficient than Zhash is, and it uses about the same memory as Zhash does as well, 144.5 as you may know it. Zel 0p, to be announced with a smiley face. Those that know might understand that reference, but it's coming, and the abstract should be dropped maybe in the next week and a half or two. Zelmed, again, not talked about much here, but it will be talked about more in the next meeting. It's a working POC for Zel nodes and what can be built on Zel nodes. Daniel, do you want to talk a little bit more about Zelmed?
Yeah, so essentially what we're doing is developing proof of concepts that will run on the Zelnode infrastructure. So we have a very robust decentralized computational network, and we've started to put together the great minds to think about how we want to develop this computational network. One of the things that came up and I hold this kind of near and dear to my heart, was how do we decentralize electronic medical records? How do we create perhaps an opt-in scenario where we can actually take our medical records and put them into the blockchain in a decentralized, secure fashion, and also align that with our Zell ID platform and how that is developed out. So that proof of concept will continue to be worked on over the next several months to 3 months. And actually, we're going to put together a presentation for the community specifically around this. So that's we're not going to get real deep down in the weeds today, but we are working on multiple pieces, because we get a lot of questions specifically about the computational network and what we're going to do with it. And what we're doing is we're trying to create the best fit for that infrastructure. I think it will continue to iterate, it will continue to grow. But for now, at least today, we have 2 or 3 things that we are looking at, and one of those would be Zelmed. We have the white paper, or as we call it internally, the black paper that's been developed. We're looking at how to integrate that, and then we're going to work on creating that POC.
Thank you, Dan. I'm really excited for Zelmed. I'll be happy to drop the abstract from the paper soon. So next, we'll talk a little bit more about Zelnodes Phase 2, although Parker kind of ran over it. Can you give us some short-term things that are coming up with Zelnodes, Parker, or the next things that are being worked on?
Sure. Yeah, we've talked about updates to the benchmarking system, which will conform to the same rules that have been there since launch. It's an effort to create more fairness as we go forward with the Zelnode operators, so everybody is playing by the same set of rules. So benchmarking will continually be built out along with anti-cheating mechanisms. And then also the next, part of the next phase with benchmarking is also updating the daemon to keep expanding on the voting structure and how payouts are decided upon. Right now, it's round robin, which a lot of master nodes and including Zelnodes setups use for payout scheme. We're a little piece of Zelnodes payouts, which rely on luck. So we have all of that road mapped out, kind of storyboarded, and we're starting the development of that. And then kind of tied into what the guys talked about, especially with Zelmed and things like ZelX. We are doing the research and starting the early like alpha builds on how to decentralize things like order books and databases across the whole Zelnodes network.
Thank you, Parker. And finally, Project Unity and its completion. Project Unity, I don't know if we've teased it. It's been talked about. It's not a huge thing by any means. But Davey, if you're available, do you want to talk about the plans with Project Unity and what our timeline is that we're aiming?
So basically, the idea is that we make it a more unified Explorer system, hence the name Unity. So we got your Ethereum explorers out there, you got your Bitcoin explorers out there, and they all have their own flavors to it. So bringing them together in one fashion will help the Zel team. It will help the rest of the crypto world. And timeline-wise, I don't have a timeline on this. Miles, I think you're better positioned for that. But that's kind of the idea of Project Unity, is bringing all the explorers together in one unified way.
Yeah. In terms of timeline, don't be too nebulous or too harsh on timelines because it's not finished. But we'll be looking towards the end of May, going into June. And as Davey mentioned, it's bringing a lot of the explorers, which obviously is a tool pretty much everyone uses almost every day with crypto. So it's important for them to be nice. And sometimes they get a little neglected. So we'll be adding extra features, potentially web wallets, and like Davey said, unifying everything under one sort of familiar interface that's easy to follow, so it's not so disjointed. So the next
Miles,
slide. Go ahead.
Well, can you go back for a second, because I think you didn't glance over 0p. You just wanted to talk about that briefly.
I talked a little bit about 0p. I don't want to give too much away until we drop the abstract.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we'll just drop the abstract, I think, late next week, and see people's reactions and what they think to it. I don't want to give too much away, though. That'll do it, I believe, for this meeting. Thank you, everyone that has attended from the community and the team. We're going to do our usual Q&A in Discord. We'll announce that as well. It's just usually a bit of a chat, nothing too intense, and it's not recorded, sorry. But yeah, please do join us in the Zel Chat Discord channel. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the support over the last few days and weeks and months and year now and a half. And we'll be looking forward now to the next month and a half as things really hot up with multiple projects that we're developing. Thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.